Have you ever wondered what you would do in a moment of pure terror? When every instinct screams that you're in danger? This is a story about a woman who faced that moment head on. It's a story that will stay with you long after you've heard it. This happened to my wife's grandmother, a fiercely independent woman living in a small town in South Texas. It was about 15 years ago, a year after her husband had passed away. To keep herself busy and connected with her community, she volunteered at the local library. She was the kind of person who didn't let age slow her down, full of spirit and a quiet strength you could feel just by being around her. It was the middle of winter, the kind where the sun gives up early and darkness falls like a heavy blanket. The library closed at 5 p.m., but she, being as dedicated as she was, always stayed a little later to finish sorting and shelving books. On this particular night, another volunteer, a kind younger woman, offered her a ride home. My wife's grandmother just smiled and politely declined. "I need the exercise," she'd say. "Gotta stay in shape." Her house was only a mile away, and she enjoyed the walk. Her route was a common shortcut for the townsfolk, a lightly wooded path that cut through a small patch of nature, connecting the library to her neighborhood. It was a path she'd walked 1,000 times, familiar and comforting. But on this night, something was different. The air was still and cold, and the usual sounds of the evening seemed muffled. She was about halfway home, the crunch of leaves under her feet the only sound, when she first noticed it. A feeling, a prickle on the back of her neck. She glanced over her shoulder and saw a figure in the distance. Someone else was on the path, walking in the same direction. At first, she thought nothing of it. It was a public path after all. But then she noticed he was gaining on her, rapidly. Now, my wife's grandmother was elderly. She wasn't a fast walker by any means, but she had a steady, determined pace. This man's pace, however, was different. It wasn't the casual stroll of someone heading home. It was purposeful, almost predatory. It felt sinister. The knot of unease in her stomach tightened. She tried to pick up her pace, her heart starting to beat a little faster against her ribs. It didn't take long. Soon, the sound of his footsteps was no longer distant. They were right behind her. Thud, thud, thud. He didn't overtake her. He didn't say a word. He just fell into step with her, matching her pace perfectly, staying just out of her peripheral vision. He was shadowing her, a silent, menacing presence just a few feet away. That's when she knew. The vague unease exploded into full-blown fear. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't another person just walking home. This was wrong. Terribly wrong. Her mind raced. Should she scream? Run. But where would she run? They were in the middle of the wooded path, surrounded by trees and darkness. But then, through a break in the trees, she saw it. A familiar, welcoming glow. The porch light of her house. She always left it on when she knew she'd be home after dark. A simple habit that now felt like a beacon of hope. It looked like someone was home, waiting for her. She was so close. Maybe another 100 yards. She just had to make it. She focused on that light, pouring all her will into each step, trying to ignore the man behind her. But it was impossible. He was so close now she could feel his breath on the back of her neck. Heavy, ragged breaths that seemed to suck the very air from around her. The sound was deafening in the silence of the night. Every nerve in her body was screaming. 50 yards to go. 40. 30. Her hand, hidden inside her large purse, tightened around something cold and heavy. Just as her driveway came into view, maybe 50 yards from her front door, it happened. A hand, strong and rough, clamped down hard on her shoulder, stopping her in her tracks. The grip was like iron. "Okay, don't turn around," a low, gravelly voice commanded right next to her ear. The words were a venomous whisper, full of menace. Hand over your purse or I'll cut you. In that split second, time seemed to slow down. Her entire life, her independence, her memories of her husband, it all flashed before her eyes. He expected her to be a victim, an easy target, an old woman alone in the dark. He was wrong. She stopped for just a single frozen moment. Her body tensed. But instead of fumbling with her purse, instead of obeying the command born of pure malice, she did something he never saw coming. She took one big, decisive step forward, using the momentum to create a sliver of space. Then she pivoted on her heel with a speed that defied her age, turning to face the monster in the dark. And she fired. The sound of the shot was deafening, a cannon blast that shattered the night's silence. The .38 revolver, which she always kept in her purse, had done its job. The man crumpled to the ground, a look of pure shock on his face, clutching his neck. The aftermath was swift. The police and an ambulance arrived. The man was taken to a hospital. As it turned out, he spent the next 5 years in a prison hospital, a consequence of his own terrible choices, before eventually succumbing to complications from his wound. My wife's grandmother, the hero of this story, was shaken, of course, but she was alive. She was unharmed. She defended herself with a courage that most of us can only hope to possess. She passed away peacefully last year, surrounded by family, having lived a long and full life. But here's the part of the story that truly defines who she was. Up until the very end, whenever she recounted that night, she would get a thoughtful look in her eye. She lamented only one thing. Just one. "I pulled the trigger too soon," she'd say with a grim little shake of her head. "I should have waited until I was inside my house. Would have saved me the trouble of dragging him off my lawn." That was my wife's grandmother, a woman of incredible grit, humor, and an unbreakable spirit. Her story is a powerful reminder that strength isn't about age or size. It's about the will to survive, the courage to fight back, and maybe, just a little bit of South Texas grit. Thank you so much for listening to this incredible story.